Hi everyone, this is Ginger with Gingerberry Creek, and today's tutorial will be creating the fabric tube for your jelly roll rug or mat. So we've already got our strips sewn, which here's my roll that we did in the previous video, and then here's my batting that I cut my own strips, and then I used one of those cardboard tubes and went ahead and rolled it, but I did leave some loose. You can just kind of stack them up. And then this is the basket that I'll be using on the floor next to me as I'm making the fabric tube, which I will show you when we go over to the sewing machine. So you'll need something like this. I've put that in the supply list in the other video. I've got my wooden dowel that goes in the handles of this basket. And then what you would do is just take this, insert the dowel into the handle. So it's on here, and then you would just, whether it's your pre-cut one or you do one like this where you've cut your own, then, I just have it come out under. And then I will put my jelly roll strips over on this other side. So then they're here together. And as they come off, we will layer them up and sew down the middle of them. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, set it on the floor next to me, and then we'll go through a few things before we get started. Okay, we're on the other side of my table where my sewing machine is at. And now what we need to do is, first things first would be to go ahead and change your sewing needle to either the microtext. They also call this a top stitching needle. And on this one you would use the 8012. If you prefer the jean or denim needle, then on this one you would use the 116. And the top stitching or microtext needle is purple or purple band, purple top. The denim or jean needle is considered a blue or blue band. So you would need to change out your needle. I've already done that on my machine, so it is good to go. The other thing you may want to do, if you have it, is swap out your presser foot for a walking foot or an auto feed foot, which this is the one that goes to my machine. So I'm going to go ahead and swap it out now. It just helps. It will feed fabric on the top as well as while the dog feeds are feeding it from the bottom. So it's very helpful to have this particular foot. If you hopefully one came with your machine. If not, it's always, if you're going to be doing these rugs, it's a great attachment to have to your machine. Just make sure that you have it nice and tight. All right, so I've got my new needle in. I've just attached my the walking foot. The next thing I'll need to do is I'm going to go ahead and set my machine to the serpentine stitch. And I do 5 millimeters wide by 2 millimeters long. So I'm going to go ahead to my stitch and set it up on my machine, and then make sure my length and my width are right, which they are. The next thing I need to do on my machine is to set up the walking foot or engage it. So I'm going to make sure that I get that engaged. There we go. All right. I also like to do a little test run on a separate piece of fabric just to make sure that I'm set and it's good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and run a line here on my scrap fabric. Make sure that it looks the way I want, that my walking foot is working correctly. All right, so that's just what I'm wanting down the center of the fabric tube. So my machine is ready to go. All right. So on the floor next to me, I have that basket that has my batting rolled up, and also the fabric strips that that I cut from the different fabrics from that collection. So now we're going to, if you haven't, before you get started, if you haven't already, you need to go ahead and have your several bobbins ready. So I've got mine right here. They're ready to go. I've got one in my machine, and I also have my top thread threaded on my machine, and it's ready to go. So I've got everything ready. So the next step of our process here in making the fabric tube is I'm pulling up my roll, my fabric roll. And at first I'm going to use the strips that I'm not going to use the one that's on the roll right now. I'm going to use the few that I left out to show you. If you don't have to roll them up. You could just have them stacked off to the side. So I've got my strip face down, and I'm going to place my batting. And here's what I'm going to do to give myself a nice kind of clean edge so that the batting is covered for when I go to start sewing it together in the rug shape. I'm actually going to put on this is the fabric tube maker tool from Clover. It comes in these two pieces snap together. This one goes inside here, and then this one goes on second, and this one snaps into this. So I'm actually going to bring my fabric over my batting first, and then I'm going to fold it to bring the centers together. And this is just going to give you a nice clean end at the end of it here, so that if you decide you don't want to taper it and you want to use the modified start method, then it's ready to go. It's already, a finished edge. So I've got this here. I'm going to take the first part of my Clover tool, and I'm going to insert here. And that makes this first set of folds. And you'll want to adjust anything, make sure that it gets as even as possible. And then I'm going to insert, snap in the second part of this tool to hold it in place. So we have that. I'm going to pull it down a little bit, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and fold this together in half again and put the second part of this tool on, and then snap it in place. This little wedge on the bottom goes into this part of your fabric tube. So this one does the very first fold and this one does the second fold. So now we're ready to start sewing. So you'll want to pull this down some, hold your ends together, and then put it under the sewing machine and begin stitching. If you have a hard time getting it up under there, you might want to have a sewing awl or sewing stiletto to help push the fabric down and get it in place. All right, I think I got it right. So now I'm just going to start sewing. And I'm just going to sew right down the center of this with that serpentine stitch. If you don't have the serpentine stitch on your sewing machine, you can use a straight stitch. My suggestion would set it at 4.5 millimeters as far as width, and then 2.5 millimeters for your length. But you can use a straight stitch. I would also then stitch about a 1/4 inch from your edge that comes together where your two pieces come together. So this end right here, I would measure over a 1/4 inch and then stitch. So we're just going to keep going. You want, with the serpentine stitch, you want to stitch down the center the best that you can. And then as it gets more, you just pull down the first tool, then pull the second tool down, kind of straighten up your ends there, and continue sewing. So I'm just straightening up my batting. Then I'm pulling this one down and then pulling this one down. I'm trying not to go too far away from here, just to make sure that it doesn't unfold. Keeping it a little bit closer to your sewing machine area will help with it, you know, not coming undone. You want to try to make sure that these edges are as even as possible, because that makes a huge difference when you are, once this tube is done and we start putting it together and sewing the tube together in the oval or round shape. You'll want to make sure that that's even. That way when you're sewing, your zigzag stitch will go across both. If it's not even or way off, then you're going to end up not being able to catch both tubes to sew them together. let me show you what we've done so far. This is what it looks like. Excuse me. This is what it looks like. I'm using that variegated thread so it goes light to dark and back and forth. So I'm just going to let it continue going straight off my table. I don't have to worry about it being level or anything like that right now. I'm just sewing down the center of this tube until we have it complete, and then we'll wrap it onto a tube, or you could wrap it into a ball. There's all kinds of things that you could do. So I'm gonna, when I get to where I need to add a new batting strip, I'll show you that. I'm gonna keep going right now until I get to that point. Okay, we've gotten to the end of our first batting strip. So I need to pull up another batting strip. And all I'm going to do is just bump it right against the one that is already there. I'm going to sew forward a little bit. Okay. Alrighty. I'm going to go forward a little bit more. Okay. So here we go. We're just going to put those two together where they're bumped together. There. If you have one side that acts like it doesn't want to catch, then just help it out. I'm going to go forward a little bit more. And then I'm going to readjust here. Okay. So I'm going to pull forward some more. Make sure that my batting is still in place. It's right here where it's bumped up to the next one. I'm going to pull it. And we're getting ready to sew over it. Okay, we've gotten that strip put together. So now we're just going to keep going until we need to add the next strip. There's no need to like fuse them together or zigzag stitch the batting together or anything like that. You It's just not necessary. If you feel like you need to do that, then you can go ahead. I don't think it's going to hurt anything, but it's not necessary. There's no need to overlap it either. I don't overlap because then that area gets a little too bulky if you overlap. A hint of overlapping might not be too bad, but I would not overlap very much if that's what you're doing. Just kind of butt the ends up together and then continue stitching. If your edge isn't even, you may want to trim it just a hair to kind of have it match up with your strip before you place it down. So I just wanted to straighten it up a little bit so it wasn't so bulky. All right. Okay, I'm gonna keep going and then we'll come back and I'll show you the other end of the tube before I finish it up. I usually try to give it a finished edge before we start making the rug. So I'm going to come back in a little bit when I'm done sewing the rest of this tube, and then I'll show you the last few steps before we begin with making the actual rug. All right, we're coming up on our first bobbin change, and I will show you how I go about changing the bobbin real quick. I'm going to go just a little bit further. I like to use as much as I can off of the bobbin so that I'm not wasting a bunch of thread. Getting pretty close. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and add my new strip here. All right, my machine just notified me that it's time for me to change the bobbin. So what I'm going to do is I've got to move these out of the way. I'm going to leave, actually, I'm going to run my needle down into my fabric tube. I'm going to lift up my presser foot and kind of move my fabric tube, and now I'm going to pop this open so I can grab my bobbin. I'm going to go ahead and clip it because it's attached over there. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to clip it down some more. All right, now I'm going to bring in my new bobbin. Make sure I have it directed the correct way for my machine. I'm going to drop it in, thread it around. All right, and now I'm just going to put this back on. Of course, it wanted to go in the wrong way. There we go. All right, now all I'm going to do is bring my tube back around like it should be. I'm going to lower my presser foot again, and then I'm going to continue sewing. And it should just pick up right where I left off with no issues. Let me sew a little more and then I'll show you where I stopped to change out that bobbin. So let me keep going. Let me see if we can find where it was. There we go. So right here is where I stopped and where my new bobbin thread began. So you can see it kind of stitched in the last little thread tail there, but that's where it changed, and then I just kept going. So we're all good. You don't have to take it out or anything like that unless you just feel that you need to do that. But that's the quickest way to kind of change your bobbin there in midstream and then keep going. So all right, I'm just gonna keep sewing the fabric tube. I think I'm about, I don't know, I think I'm probably about halfway with this tube. So I think what I'll do is I'll let you watch for a few, and then I'll stop and I'll bring you back when I'm when I'm kind of at towards the end of this fabric tube. Alrighty. Actually, I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, when you do your bobbin, change out your bobbin, what you might want to do at the same time is if you've got a lot of lint buildup and stuff happening, it's a good time to go ahead and use a can of electronics duster and spray out the area. If you have your bobbin out and the stuff moved off to the side, it's a good time to, you know, even clean that part out. But so, alrighty. So now after I'm done, I'm going to keep going. After I'm done with getting that all kind of brushed off, I'm going to keep going. And then I'll be back to show you the end of this fabric tube. Okay, so here's the end of my strip and my batting. So what I'm going to do is cut the batting slightly less than how long this strip is. I'm thinking probably of at least like a 1/2 inch. Okay, so there's what we have right there. And now what I'm going to do is fold this end over, just like this. I'm going to pull this one down a little bit and sew a little bit further. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to try to hold this as I bring this. Well, even if I bring it off of there, I can refold it here. So I'm going to take that tool off. I'm going to fold these over. So now they're like that. I'm going to pull this tool down and hold this end while I sew a little bit further. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this one off. I'm going to adjust my folds here. Okay, so there's what I've got. It's hard to see. There's what I've done. So I folded it over the batting. Then I made my folds inward. And then we folded it in half. And now I'm just going to sew all the way to the end of this strip. Okay, and now I'm just going to clip those threads. And there we have our strip and that finished end. So now I'm going to take you to the other side of the table and we'll prep it for our, we get it on that tube so that we can do the actual rug next. Fabric tube. And this was what I just finished. And your tube width should be approximately 5/8 inch wide. I know sometimes it's a little deceiving when you're looking at it, you know, just from a picture. But so this width across here should be approximately 5/8 inch. But I know, like I said, from the pictures, it can sometimes look a little bit wider than that. All right, so a lot of people wonder if you need to iron this before you wind it up to do the actual rug, and you do not need to iron. If you feel like you just want to, then that is totally up to you, personal preference, but you do not need to. It's not required. So what we need to do next is we need to put all of this onto something that's going to be easily managed. You can, begin to wrap it in a ball, like start wrapping it like this and do a ball instead of, if you have nothing to wrap it on, so you just start somehow. What you want to do is decide if you're going to have your darker color around the outside of the rug, or if you want the lighter color, or whatever color you want around the edge of your rug. You're gonna need to start rolling it first. So I'm going to end with this around this rug, so I'm gonna wind it first. Now, what you can use is one of these. I'll move this real quick. One of these like cord, I think it's an electric cord reel that you can buy at like Lowe's or Home Depot, and you would just begin wrapping it here. You might want to like wrap it a few times yourself and get it started, but you would wrap it around this, and then you could set this down next to you on the floor and unravel it as you go. So this is what you could do. It looks like there's a little hook here. You could use this. I don't use this. I got one just to show for this video, but I don't use this one. But you would just take this and start winding it up on here. Or if you don't want to spend the money for something like this, then you could use like a basket like what I got. It's just a basket. I think I got it at, I don't know, like Family Dollar or Dollar General, but it's kind of curved in the front, and then it has the little handles here. So, and then I just have a tube that was like from wrapping paper, and then I have that dowel that I used from before. So what I'm going to do is wrap my my fabric tube onto this. What I'm going to need are some of the clips, like the quilt clips, because that's what I use to hold it in place at first, and then I will I'll clip it to the actual tube. So let me get my clips here. All right, so these are what I'm talking about, just this little clip right here. All right, so this is the tube. I'm going to end up putting the dowel in it and then putting it in the handle of my basket here. And then that will sit on the floor. So I need to find the end again of this. So I want this color on the outer part of my rug, so I'm gonna start wrapping it first. And all I'm gonna do is to put it on here and then clip it, hold it with a clip, just like that. And I'm just gonna wrap it. And this is how I go about it. I like it to be nice and neat. That way when I undo it, it comes off and it doesn't get all tangled up or anything like that. So we're just gonna keep wrapping it until we have it completely on the tube. And if you need to clip a couple, use another clip to make sure it stays, that's fine. I found that doing this it's a cheaper version of something that, you know, I didn't want an elaborate setup or need to make anything in particular. That's why I just bought the basket for a few dollars, and then I had one of these tubes empty from Christmas, and I just decided to do it like this. It was a lot easier. So when I get to this other end, I'm just gonna kind of start going the other direction. Like I said, if you don't have anything like this, then just wrap it into a big, huge ball. And then you could set it in a basket on the floor, and then it'll just unravel when you're sewing the actual rug. So I'm just gonna do this and get it all wound up. Okay, there's our roll. It's all on here. And now the next step is putting it together as a rug. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this video tutorial has been helpful. And please like and share the video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.